So, I've been recommended this video quite a few times recently. It's by the wonderful Garrett and Kyle over at Grinding Gear, and it is titled Fix Final Fantasy XIV, the biggest issues facing Final Fantasy's MMO. Now, allow me to preface this with, I do quite like Garrett and Kyle. I have a bias probably towards them because I do think they're quite nice people. But I will say that I've been quite vocal on my streams and just in general in my Discord about the sheer amount of videos which are out there by 14 creators or people sort of on the fringes of the 14 community making clickbait videos, shall we say, about the death of Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy XIV is dying, etc., etc. And it's been a bit demoralizing, to be honest, to see it all. And there was a time when I was considering joining in on that, and I thought it seems pointless to throw petrol onto the fire that is already burning like a pyre. But I've been told that what Garrett and Kyle have done in this video is a little bit different to what most other people tend to do. So I'm curious to see what that is, and I'll see if I agree with them. So, yeah, without further ado, let's shrink down and let's watch.
Well, Kyle?
Yes, Garrett?
Is Dawn Trail the worst thing since Dawn Trail?
Okay. I'm in. I don't know where this is going, but okay, picking fun at it is a great start, and I'm glad that it clearly echoes the sentiment I just made, that this sort of stuff, this sort of stuff, there you go, is all I see on YouTube in regards to 14 nowadays. So, okay. I'm curious to see where this goes. Let's continue.
What we did was we found a bunch of people who are actually playing the game and polled them.
Wow! What a novel idea!
We are in the doldrums before the next major content patch for the MMO known as Final Fantasy XIV. We know 7.2 is on the way, but that doesn't make the wait for it any more enjoyable.
No,
it should
doesn't.
be a time of hope, but instead there's a lot of gauging of expectations, making sure we don't get too excited, because people don't expect surprises at this point.
No, that regiment, while seeming refreshing for me, someone coming from World of Warcraft, where
It was nice, yeah.
forget Warlords of Draenor, or it's a failure, let's put all that effort into Legion and make everyone sit on the same piece of content for a really long time.
A really long time is maybe underselling it. It was like a year with no content. I remember running around Tanaan Jungle for quite a few months, just doing nothing. So yeah, but I'll let them talk and I'll interject at appropriate times. Anyway, back to the video.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that's a surprise, but it's still a surprise. There's still a lot of hope. There's a cycle of hope and despair over in World of Warcraft, and there's a cycle of hope and despair over here in Final Fantasy XIV, at least as far as I can tell. It's just much more regimented. And
Scheduled. It's scheduled despair. So what do we got here?
Scheduled despair.
Well, what we've got here is we asked our audience. We went to the Gearbox. Everyone that either is a member of our YouTube membership program or supports us over on our Patreon. Shout out to supportourbromance.com.
Supportourbromance.com.
Like, hey, what do you think is in most need of improvement in Final Fantasy XIV? We got close to 1,000, if not more than 1,000 responses.
Big write-ups too, like really well thought out, dedicated effort.
Okay.
Put into people's opinions.
Yeah.
And so we...
Having 1,000 people respond is a pretty good sample size, I would say, compared to the opinions of one person who is more often than not going to be atypical from your average player. And in this situation, I'm talking about streamers and content creators who have to make a living off of playing the game, who play the game exponentially more than the vast majority of people. Right? Like when I was streaming this game, I was playing it, God, easily 10 plus hours a day. And I know for most people that is unrealistic. So to be able to get 1,000 plus people and to give, have them all give such great feedback, I'm interested in this. I think they've done a good thing here. Anyway, back to the video.
stripped away all of that personality and made it into a 7-point poll. Like a lot of these names we saw writing really detailed responses to our question of what can be done better are the same names we're seeing join us for Savage Nights, join us for our big Eureka Nights. These
Cool.
are dedicated players who love this game and want to see it surprise and delight, improve. And those, they're here. We've got them here. These are the top 7. Please God, make this better in Final Fantasy.
I love a physical prop. This is great.
14 requests. And we're going to try and guess from 1 to 7 which one is the biggest problem in our audience's eyes with Final Fantasy 14. And then over here we have the actual 7 in order. Shout out to Kristen for getting in here before we recorded so that we stayed unspoiled. And of course we're going to talk about these along the way. So we're going to have a discussion, but we're also going to try and figure out what you think the worst thing about Final Fantasy 14 is. What do you want to start? Let's just...
Oh yeah, let's just go with the pile. Let
Okay.
the pile
I'm
be
curious
random.
to see if I agree
That's a
with
great
them.
place to start.
Excellent.
MSQ's narrative, pacing, and quality.
Okay.
So much has been said about this.
I'll hear what... okay, hold on. So I'm doing this on the fly if you couldn't tell. I will listen to what they have to say, then I'll interject afterwards. But what I will add for people who maybe don't know me or don't know Grinding Gear, we began playing the game around the same time. I think they began it a bit earlier than I did, but I played it a bit quicker. So I think we sort of were parallel at the tail end of Shadowbringers, and then we beat Endwalker within some months of each other. But I say that to mention that we are relatively new to the game, as opposed to people who have been playing since, 1.0, 2.0, heavens, you get the idea. So I imagine our perspectives from that point of view will be a little bit skewed, but then also playing the game as a job is also going to have an impact on our opinions. So anyway, I'll let them say their piece. I'll interject, and I'll see if we agree. So far, yep, this is up my street.
Oh yes, a lot has been said.
A lot of people have hot takes.
We said our
Indeed
piece
they
in this
do.
video.
Indeed, they do.
In this video?
It's a great video.
Oh, you're
I'm doing it.
gesturing.
Great video. Great thumbnail.
I'm doing a thing. I'm doing a.
He's
I'm
gesturing.
doing a video thing. A plug.
A lot has been said about the quality of the MSQ narrative, which, let's be honest, any narrative?
Well, to copy Kyle, if you go... Hold on, let's see if I can do it. If you go here, I spoke to Jesse Cox about my thoughts on Dawntrail's MSQ and the future of Final Fantasy XIV. Go check it out. Anyway, back to the video.
It's subjective. There's probably a movie that is critically across the board panned, and if you go and check the audience score, it's also panned that I probably love, and you too.
I take this comment very seriously because this is a lot more reading than the average bear does in a video game. The majority of people who absorb completely the MSQ also read books.
Yeah.
Consume lots of different media. They don't just go to video games for their entertainment, and I feel like that gives them a better understanding of what they want. And a lot of them want maturity. They want to be told a gripping and mature story while still having that hope and friendship that we've come to enjoy from Final Fantasy games. We love those tropes, and we love tropes in Final Fantasy XIV. That's not the problem.
So do the writers.
Exactly. And we love seeing our predictions come true and having that exchange with it.
And that's maybe specifically with us. I would start the bidding quite high on this one.
I would say it's not as important for this current junction, because what we're talking about often is what am I going to do in the game? I want to log in more. And MSQ is a bit of a one and done quantity.
I don't think our audience weighed it like that. I think right now you ask somebody what's wrong with Final Fantasy XIV, I bet there's like a 75% chance this is one of the first things that fires off in their brain. Even if they don't personally believe it, they probably think, oh god.
I know they had a big issue with the rubber bullets, so that's hilarious.
Discourse.
It's a huge selling point too. Like the whole drive of getting people to play the game on the base level story.
Yeah.
And we're waiting for it to pop off. Will it pop off? We don't know. Are you watching this in the future and it did pop off? Hell yeah. But let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I think You've convinced me. It's a pretty big concern.
I think this is 1 or 2.
Okay, before they place it, I'm going to try and guess 2. Not that I'm guessing number 2. 2, T-O-O. I think the points they make are very... they've both made good points here. I do think the MSQ forms the foundation of our attachment to the game. If the story's good, we're going to be attached to the game more so and will want to play it more. That isn't saying that a good MSQ eradicates the need for there to be good extracurricular side content. There has to be content to enjoy. Otherwise, the MSQ could be the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not going to keep playing the game if there's nothing for me to do in it. But it is an important foundational block. Because on the other side of that, if the MSQ is god-awful, I'm going to feel more disconnected from the game. And even if there is good side content, I play the game for the story mainly. So I would go 3. They're going 1 and 2, but I think I would go 3. Because what we've got to remember is, for me, my own personal opinion, I think from 2.0 through to the end of Endwalker, including the patch quests, I thought Endwalker patch quests were fantastic. It's been exemplary. It's been fantastic. I do think, personally, Dawn Trail was a bit of a stumble. But I think they're allowed a stumble. Considering they've just come off the back of a brilliant streak of home runs, I think a little stumble is to be expected. Yeah, it sucks for, those of us who share my sentiment that it wasn't the best MSQ ever. But I'm not going to say it's the most imperative thing that needs to be fixed right now. I'm going to say 3 is where I would put it personally. But let's see where they go.
I'm going to go 2. I like 2.
All right.
There's got to be.
I'm with you too, and I'll tell you why. Don't think it's number 1 because it's our audience. A lot of folks in our community, they've moved past this. We're not debating the merits or lack thereof of the Dawn Trail MSQ nearly as much nowadays in our Discord. So I think it's still high, but I don't think it's the number 1 spot.
Agreed.
All right.
Okay.
We're recording our promo at the end. Hide the spoilers.
See, I wish I had a blanket. I have a towel.
Where's your wizard blanket?
Oh, what's happening?
Hide the spoilers, Kyle. Hide.
Okay, all right.
We always record our promos at the end.
That's a really nice blanket. Where did you get that, Kyle?
Hey, do you like this sort of content? Do you want to be a part of this sort of content?
Do you want bonus content?
I'm going to beat them to it. SupportOurBromance.com.
Want to
There you go.
support these 2 chuckle fucks in their endeavors? Well, check out SupportOurBromance.com. It'll take you straight to our Patreon. And if for some reason the forwarding isn't working, it's just patreon.com/Garrett and Kyle. There's 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. No one ever spells it right. Head on over there, get wonderful perks like access to our members-only channel in the Discord, which is where we took suggestions for this poll and then also ran the poll. So whether you support us through YouTube membership or over on Patreon, all of you get access to the members-only Discord, where we have a lot of talks about.
I can highly recommend Garrett and Kyle. They're fantastic.
Throw it to you to help us make it. So come join us.
I say that as someone who's been on their podcast once or twice and maybe screamed playing Phasmophobia with them.
SupportOurBromance.com or
Become a YouTube member.
oh, we didn't turn that camera.
SupportOurBromance.com.
Support it.
Support our
Support.
Next.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
What is it?
Spaghetti code.
Okay, I've got some thoughts on this.
Spaghetti.
I'm already getting hungry.
The spaghetts.
The spaghetts.
This is a fascinating one. This is crazy. I think it's worth clarifying that we know from interviews with Yoshi P that this spaghetti is homemade.
We don't have any sort of technical or a technological issue that was carried over from 1.0.
This is a whole new fresh batch of a Realm Reborn spaghetti that we are dealing with.
Free range spaghetti.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whenever weird stuff happens, it seems like this is the go-to for most players. And occasionally, very occasionally, even rarely, the devs.
I will quickly chime in to say that they probably encountered something similar to me in my own playthrough, where I would have a critical comment to make about a certain system or game function, and I'd look at my chat and it would be, spaghetti code. It was often sort of like the hand-waved, spaghetti code. Don't think too much about it. And having watched them play from, I believe, the beginning of Endwalker onwards, I know that they similarly had people make comments like that. So we've probably got a very similar opinion, I'm willing to bet.
This is one that lives in infamy for me, because it gets tossed out whenever you want to talk about anything you want improvement for.
Yeah.
There's always at least one person in the chat room who goes, but spaghetti code.
Yeah,
and my response
exactly.
is always, not my problem.
Exactly.
I think that's a fair take.
I'm with
and
you.
we've seen other games unravel the spaghetti and recover from it to big success. Of course, we're talking about World of Warcraft and the unraveling of the Legion code, which led to WoW Classic being available and Plunderstorm and all the weird stuff they're doing with remixes now.
Yeah.
And when we won things like Glamour, this is the culprit.
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, I do believe, to spoil a future one of the things going up here is Glamour System. I think this might be number one.
I'd put it at number one just because the sheer amount of fun conversations that it's ruined.
Okay, well, they've already said where they're putting it, so I'm going to quickly have my piece now. What I will say is, I'm not a game developer. To my knowledge, Garrett and Kyle aren't game developers. A lot of the people who probably talk about spaghetti code aren't game developers. We can only glean what we know from developer interviews and, sound bites of them bringing up the code. So everything I say, take with a pinch of salt, because I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Really don't know what we're talking about. But the spaghetti code is, to my eye, the underlying issue for so many of these micro problems the game has, which are points of friction for players. And they've already touched upon a big one, that being the Glamour System. When I played World of Warcraft, when I played Guild Wars 2, I like to collect my outfits. And the existing Glamour System it's a bit archaic. And I know people will say, well, it was even more archaic back in the day. It's still pretty unintuitive. And you've got a hard cap on how many items you can store, and it just doesn't feel good to interact with. Whereas again, and I hate to make the comparisons, compare that to the way WoW and Guild Wars 2 handle their wardrobe systems, and you can begin to see why we would want something like what they have, because it's just so much more easy to enjoy, and it can make collecting a viable side activity. Like, I spent literally years of my life playing WoW collecting clothing, right? Like running old raids to get like the one leather shoulder pad I was missing from Blackwing Lair. Or maybe I would need to go and play my priest and unlock my tier 7 or something, right? We can't do that because of the spaghetti code. And where maybe this takes more precedence nowadays is we have shown, or been shown, FF14 Mobile, where there is a Glamour System improvement. And I believe they've said, so again, take this with a pinch of salt, they've said that it's because they're able to sort of build it from the ground up that they could introduce something like that into the mobile game. And, being someone who plays the game on PC, it's bittersweet seeing that, because I want that. But I can't have that because of the spaghetti code, right? I'm at the bakery, and I'm looking through the window with my hands on the glass, and I can see this delicious chocolate cake, and I can't have it because my mum won't let me in to have a bit. And that's what the spaghetti code is. The spaghetti code is my mother, is what I'm trying to say. No, I just want chocolate cake, and that chocolate cake is the Glamour System. There are plenty of other things in the game which are being restricted by it, and I think for that reason, it probably would be number one for most people. I'd put it at number one, I think. I'm with them. Number one. Let's see.
I'm mad at this thing, but not at the devs. I'm actually a little mad at them. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I want it fixed, but I can't help. And there's a lot I like about it, and they found some cute workarounds, but I know I'm going to talk about that in Glamour, so let's for now put that at number 1.
It's just the biggest catch-all. Like it's got to be number 1,
right?
That's got to be number 1.
There's so many things that it has been.
It's all encompassing.
It is the scapegoat. I think our audience is smart. I think the Gearbox is very smart. That's why we identify correctly what parts are spaghetti code.
Formulaic dungeons.
Okay, this is low.
Dungeons. Okay.
Because it's not like a big deal.
You're just calling it?
I'm calling it.
I can put it wherever I want.
I know. I'm not dismissing it at all because I think this is a fascinating topic. It's the science of fun. And we have seen this encroach over the course of our journey. We did every optional dungeon. We did things before the support duties came by and changed parts of the dungeon. And things are pretty formulaic. It was cute. Holminster switch, it rolls out, it's got some little firewall, some little web business, and you're like, that's fine. I see why maybe they did that. But again and again and again? We're adults. Let us pool. Let us die horribly.
Let us pull. Let's go.
Let's go.
How much do you not trust your players?
Can we just drag the trash onto the boss? Is that spaghetti code? Can we not? Are you afraid if we put the mobs with the boss, something will go wrong? But that'd be fun, you know? We get in a group and you're like, damn, everyone's bis. Let's go.
This is a tough one. That's the stuff that I agree with. That is formulaic and getting long in the tooth. But I think the boss unique factor has been super high in Dawn Trail.
The bosses are badass.
They're really unique.
They're really fun.
Agreed.
7.1 had an amazing dungeon.
MMO players are such bastards.
We
are
are
bastards.
Well, we all want different things.
We do.
And particularly...
But also the...
Hold on. I've got to quickly chime in on what Kyle has said. We all want different things. That is why this is such a contentious topic. Not just with Final Fantasy XIV. Having played WoW for the better part of 15, 20 years, these conversations came up every expansion. And from what I gather, these conversations come up every expansion with 14 as well. And I've seen it with Guild Wars. It's because at the root, these games appeal to a vast array of people. I just mentioned a minute ago about how I played WoW for years just collecting things. Mounts, clothing, pets. That's where I got my joy. At the same time, I could be stood in Stormwind City, stood next to a Mythic Raider, and then next to them, maybe there's someone who does Mythic Plus, and then maybe next to them, someone who does PvP exclusively. And if you were to poll each of us on what we wanted the game to do more of, you'd have had 4 different answers. Most likely, wildly different answers. And the same applies to 14. There are people who play this game for the glamour. There's people who play this game to do their house up nice. There's people who play it just to hang out with friends, do raiding, savages, ultimates. There is a vast swath of people who have different takes and different opinions and different wants and needs. And that's why these conversations get tricky, because I think a lot of people tend to give their opinion as if it were de facto. Like, what I want is what everyone wants, and that is immutable and unchanging. And, you know, like, I am right, you are wrong, which is wrong. It's just wrong. You can't think that way when there's so many people who want different things because of the nature of a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So, you know, I say this not only for their benefit, but for my benefit too, and anyone else watching at home. Have your opinion, but don't let that come at the cost of other people being able to share theirs. No one is right, no one is wrong. But in our own world, of course, we think we're right. Anyway, moving on.
The most vocal of us usually want the same thing. We want raids and harder dungeons and all of the people who are part of what makes 14 so unique, which are the folks who are super into stuff like crafting and player housing. Yep. They're left on the sidelines.
Exactly. That's the beauty and joy of Final Fantasy XIV is that we are playing an MMO for so many different end games. Whereas other MMOs get the benefit of saying, we are servicing this audience. And even they're not happy. And even they feel like they're missing out on mid-core content. But it is a little easier in those departments.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think this is kind of low. I don't think it's 7, again, because it's our audience, and we literally make videos ranking dungeons because we like dungeon content so much in MMOs. So I would like to start at 6.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Look at us.
Now, I don't know what the options were. They've given them 7 options to pick from. So I would put formulaic dungeons 6 or 7. Yeah, I'd agree with them on that. But something, again, to touch on what Kyle said, I don't think it's a unique problem to 14. I don't think 14 necessarily has a substantial amount of varied endgame compared to other MMORPGs. It might feel a bit more black and white because of the divide between each of the different vocations, shall we say. But if I were to look at Elder Scrolls Online is a good example. My dad plays Elder Scrolls Online casually, but he does it to play the market. That's how he plays the game. He doesn't do dungeons or raids or PvP. He plays the market. And there are people who do that in 14. There are people who do that in World of Warcraft. And they amass mountains of gold, and that brings them joy. There are people who craft exclusively, gather exclusively. I know you can't do it in WoW, but you can do housing in Guild Wars 2. You can do that in Elder Scrolls. You can do it in 14. I don't know how those games balance it, and I'm not going to pretend to know because I don't know, and I don't want to sit here and give incorrect information. But I do think 14 does a decent enough job at trying to cater to each of these groups for the most part. We'll probably come back to this later because I imagine it'll come up on their list. But I do feel like there are some pitfalls in that. And yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But to go back to formulaic dungeons, which I've not really discussed at all during this segment, it's not an issue for me personally. I would probably put it at 7. I'm not that bothered by the formulaic nature of them. I think what they did with the Criterion dungeons was an interesting twist. But even then, it becomes formulaic. Once you know what you need to do, it's a formula. And I get the idea of having the freedom to do as big of a pull as you want to. And I would like that, sure, but I'm not awake at night thinking, God, when's Yoshi P gonna let me pull every mob into the boss room? Do you know what I mean? And that isn't to, I suppose diminish their thoughts on it. It's just, I'd put it at 7, I would say. Anyway.
Us being agreeable.
Yeah, I like that.
I want us to get at least into one shouting match before this video is over.
Maybe.
I wonder if they will.
Let's see what happens next.
Foreshadowing? Maybe?
What we got here?
It's a long
Optional
one.
content barely gets referenced in the MSQ. Ooh. Ooh.
This is near and dear to my heart.
Same.
I love Eden.
Eden's
Eden
good.
is one of the greatest things that they've put in the game. Until I did
Hard
Pandemonium, and I was like, oh my god, I
agree.
like this even more than Eden.
Pandemonium's
But
good.
Nah, I
before
prefer
did
Eden
Pandemonium,
more.
I was like, holy shit, Eden.
I love Eden.
Amazing raid design and just more MSQ. It felt like it should have been MSQ. It was so deeply tied into major themes and character arcs from
Couldn't agree more.
Shadowbringers that I could not believe that if you don't raid, you didn't see it. And if you don't raid and you enjoy blinking, you still haven't seen Gaia.
There you are. I waited and waited, but you never came. What have you been doing here?
Garrett here after the fact. What I was about to say was, and if you don't raid and you enjoy blinking, you still won't see some of these major characters because they don't even get that much time in the MSQ. When they do get the MSQ, as I'm sitting here editing, I'm thinking, wait, do you even see Gaia in 6.5? If you haven't done Eden, went and Googled it, and sure enough, no, this is actually completely optional. Like, you won't see this part of this cutscene if you don't do Eden based on everything that I can find. Yeah, that's a weird one. Because This is one of those examples where I actually really like that they went to the extra effort of adding more to a voiced cutscene based on the rating that you've done. But at the same time, the point still stands if everyone who wrote in was just like, I wish I saw more of my favorite characters that, in the case of someone like Gaius, gets fired off to non-MSQ content, or in the case of Gaia, you just don't meet, period, if you don't do some non-MSQ content. So it was a sticky one. Anyway, a little postscript for you. Let's get back to us in the past.
Enough about that. What were you talking about?
And I don't know, are they afraid that...
Good segue.
Well, we see from our statistics that 40% of the playing audience haven't actually run Eden, and we're afraid that if we show Gaia, they're not going to know who she is.
But the barrier to entry is kind of low to get in a normal raid.
Yes, it is.
And you can even queue for it. You don't have to do Party Finder.
Yes, it is, and I do think that if we made raid characters significantly more locked into MSQ, that would be, albeit a strange and abnormal incentive, it would still be an extra incentive to do raids.
And when you're writing those characters with knowledge that you will be interworked, those characters can be farther reaching.
Yeah.
Something that Final Fantasy is extremely good at and always been is, where is the character? Where are they currently located on the planet?
Yeah.
And what are they up to?
I love Warlit, because it's one of my favorite stories that has been told inside Final Fantasy XIV, because Gaius is one of my favorite characters.
It's a good character.
But also in retrospect now, I feel like I should have had an impending sense of dread that Gaius was put in a raid, because if you get put in a raid, we never see you again.
One of the great joys of an RPG is the interwoven nature.
Yeah.
And there are moments where that has come out of Final Fantasy. And sometimes it's a very, very small nod, like what can happen with coils throughout the game. The game is aware you did coils, but that has so much darn meaning. And it does feel like those have decreased over the years. We saw a lot of it in Endwalker. We saw a lot of it, but we're not telling that kind of story right now, but I think we want that back. This is an RPG problem.
Of a lot of the things we're going to talk about today, this is probably for me the one that comes from the hypest place of love. It's just like, I love the raids and I love the story so much. I just want them to be more intertwined.
And I love when this happens. I am so passionate about our...
I, too, am quite passionate. And I'm going to do what I did earlier. Here's a clip of me reacting to when Gaia walked in on the MSQ.
It inspires me to redouble my efforts.
All I want now is Gaia to walk in the room. Come on. Yoshi P. Oh?
There you are.
No way! No way! What?
I waited and waited, but you never came. What have you been doing here?
Yeah, I lost my mind. Anyway.
RPGs, when this happens, it hasn't happened because we have a lot of new characters. We have a lot of old characters that maybe could have said things that they did in the past, but we have a lot of new characters. So this may be on the horizon in great abundance, but something I deeply care about.
Before he places it, I'm going to share my own 2 cents. So, as you saw from the clip a minute ago of me and Gaia, I also struggled a little bit with the realization that optional content often exists as a purgatory for characters where they're in this inescapable realm, right? Where they cannot escape back into the main story aside from the occasional, I don't know, mention in dialogue. And that is the most you would get, is like a little line about them, which you would only get if you've done that piece of content. And when I would complain about that, people would say, well, it's optional. They can't have them in the MSQ because the people who haven't done it wouldn't know who they are. There has to be a solution to that. That can't be the catch-all sort of deflection. I'm sure there are ways for them to do a story recap for those who don't want to do the raids. Take a look at the tome in any in-room. If they had a segment in there which allowed you to watch the cutscenes and maybe have some additional narration in there of the raid stories, that would work perfectly, I would say, for people who don't want to do it but want to be caught up on the story. You could probably recap Eden in 5 minutes. And that's maybe a bit extreme. 5 to 10 minutes, I would say. And considering how long some of the cutscenes are in this game in the MSQ, I think asking a player to watch a 5 to 10 minute cutscene wouldn't be a problem. And if it is, I would have a lot of questions. There were some very long, at times tedious cutscenes, especially in Dawn Trail, that I think if you were to have like a properly cut and edited recap of a raid, for example, to give people that introduction into the story and who the characters are, I think people would lap that up. I think that I've played through it all. I would love that too, as a recap, to know who these people are. And it comes from a place of love, and I think Garrett and Kyle both said this. The characters are so good and so well written and so lovable that I want more of them. And I think not having Gaia being in the story would suck, right? In the same way, I have been feverishly waiting for Unu Kalhai to partake more in the 13th plot and get him over with Silver and going to help Zero and Golbez. But the issue with that is Unu Kalhai was sort of trapped in side quest purgatory. But now he's beginning to come back out of that and partake. More of that, please. That would be lovely. Again, I don't know where Kyle is about to place this, but for me, cool, I think it would be 5. I think it would be 5, is what I would put it.
At least.
And it's something I think I'm alone in, so I think it's actually number 7.
Oh, no. Oh, I care so. I love this so much.
I think you and I are super passionate about this, and clearly we're not entirely alone, because the only reason it's here is because multiple people mentioned it. But I also think it's probably at the bottom of the barrel of...
Again, I don't know what the other options are, so the other ones might be really good. But I'm sticking with it. I'm going 5.
Please do something about this for a lot of people.
It fills out so much content and makes it worth doing, even if the carrot on the stick isn't there.
Yeah.
Even if the glam isn't right, if the gear isn't right, if the society you're interacting with is kind of dull. There's still that hope that someday that lizard man will show up and be like, I know you, you're cool.
All right. We might need to make room at number 1. Glamour System is up.
Glamour System.
Glamour System.
In particular, in the comparison to other games that have similar systems that aren't as robust.
Kyle, what is one thing that you 100% know in your heart that Final Fantasy XIV players love to do?
Draw your Stola?
Talk about how much better
True.
their game is than World of Warcraft.
True.
Final Fantasy XIV players love nothing more their favorite pastime, besides fishing, is...
I love Garrett, but I do think that's maybe slightly hyperbolic. In my experience, I don't... Let me go big again. In my experience, there isn't as much tribalism from 14's perspective, looking at other MMOs. Like it's more often than not the exception rather than the rule, where I run into someone who is vehemently trying to boast about how much better their game is than WoW or Guild Wars or whatever. And yeah, I get that comparison is natural. I do it all the time, and these guys do it all the time too. We played MMOs. I've played more than my fair share. You know, I've played Dark Age of Camelot, EverQuest 2, Guild Wars 1 and 2. I could sit here all day and wax lyrical about that. But when we've played these games for decades, multiple decades of our lives, it's natural that points of comparison come up. And I think something which is unfortunately so deeply entwined with fans of MMORPGs is this sense of tribalism. And I'm not necessarily just referring to 14's player base here, but everyone as a whole. The idea that, you know, your MMO is better and greater. It sort of harkens back to sort of console fanboyism, which I really detest, because ultimately what we should be doing is championing and celebrating other games in the genre And, saying, I love what Guild Wars 2 has done with their die system. I'd love that in Final Fantasy XIV. Or I think ESO's got some innovative ideas with their house. Could we get some of that over here in 14 as well? It should never be, you're shit, we're much better, get wrecked, you lose. That is not conducive. And I think a world where we celebrate these other MMOs and we play them freely is a world I want to live in. So yeah. So what I'm saying is I disagree with the sentiment that 14 players love to just rag on WoW, because I've not encountered that in my own experience. It's not to say it's not true, just my own experience. I've not encountered it so much.
Talking about every way that Final Fantasy XIV is better than World of Warcraft. And this is the 40-ton gorilla in the room where you just go, oh, WoW does such a better job, it's not even close.
It's so warped for sure.
Yes, this is a bane on Final Fantasy XIV's existence. Because you know what their second favorite thing to do is? Glam.
There's things I like about it. Restriction breeds creativity. I'm not saying it like it. I'm not saying it's good. I'd rather collect everything. There is this hideous jacket that's just all padded armor. But if you dye it orange, it kind of looks like a 70s era spacesuit. And I threw it away because I thought to myself, when would I ever need this? And then we went to space.
Went to the moon.
And I didn't have the shitty jacket to dress up in an old orange spacesuit.
The things I like about it are glamour.
I know I'm meant to be waiting till the end, but I've got to say, I'm ad-libbing a bit because I don't remember the exact words Kyle just used, but limitation breeds innovation. And I know he said he wasn't making an excuse and a bit of cope or whatever. I can see that. Sure, I can see that. We see that nowadays with the idea of on-demand video services. I've got Netflix at my fingertips. I've got a whole array of, films and TV shows to watch. But I'm struck with this choice paralysis. Whereas you take me to Blockbuster 20 years ago, I'll pick out a film, I'll grab a snack, I'll go home, I'll watch that. So I kind of get where he's coming from. But I think it's apples to oranges in this situation, where I would much rather have an extensive library, which I have created and collected and cultivated throughout my years of playing a game, as opposed to having it limited and then being forced to have to throw something away, which, like him, maybe one day you would want to have your orange spacesuit, if you know what I mean.
That's great. Wonderful. World of Warcraft has something kind of similar, but you have to go to the transmog all the time, and I like that I can swap out my glam place wherever I want.
It's also really expensive. Like, I have run out of money glamming my character.
Oh, transmog in WoW is extremely expensive, yes. Yeah, it is so easy to just be drowning in glamour prisms in Final Fantasy XIV. That's another thing I really like about it. There's a lot that's great about the glamour system, and that's, I think, why it stings so much, that the limitations, particularly on space and storage, that's why it hurts.
And I know we were lucky, we meaning myself, Garrett, and Kyle, because I believe we played the game shortly after they doubled the limit to 800, and I had that filled up by the end of Heavensward. So yeah.
So bad.
Big shout out to their new stacking system, where you can take your only level 1s at the moment, but put them in a little pile and put that in as a single stack.
It even has its own limitations, though, when it comes to die.
Yeah.
I think this is really high.
2.
But
I'd put it at 2.
This is a problem because of spaghetti code. So I don't think it beats out spaghetti code. Because this has always been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, this is hot.
Most people have only been annoyed with the MSQ recently. Or Stormblood, apparently. I really like Stormblood.
Yeah, Stormblood's fine.
I love Stormblood.
Stormblood's great.
I'd say 3 feels comfy for now. Let's see what else is in the pile.
I've got nothing really to add. I think it's at 2. I put MSQ at 3, Spaghetti Kid at 1. I've said all I need to say, so I'll keep watching.
These are good magnets.
Oh, I will say one more thing. Garrett did say that 14's fans glamour more often than anything, aside from ragging on WoW, apparently. And I do agree about the glamming thing. I think for most people, glam is, in many ways, the end game. Because once you've done your raiding and once you've done your dungeons and once you've done the PvP, you get all your cool, new outfits, and then that's where the joy comes from, is building out new glam plates. So, yeah, to me, having an updated Glamour system, which is more on par with what WoW and Guild Wars 2 offers, seems like it would be a home run for the vast majority of players. Again, if that Venn diagram of all of these different vocations, your crafters, your gatherers, your raiders, your PvPers, your house enthusiasts, and your glam experts, that Venn diagram, there is a big cross-section in the middle, which is glam. So, yeah, I'd put it at 2. But then Spaghetti Code is intrinsically linked to it, so it's tricky. Anyway, 2.
Curious next. Ooh. Oh. Earlier patches need more varied content.
Curious to see what they say.
This is a big bucket. Anyone who has said in the last few months that they need to remix what releases when in the patch rollout cycle. A commonly stated desire right now is for field operations to drop at 7.1 or in the 0.1 patch and not the 0.2 patch.
Yeah.
Also, the new crafting system. We're going to space in Dawn Trail. I don't
Space.
craft, so I haven't looked super deep into this. But
Ishgardian restoration kind of business thing.
Okay, one of those. An Ishgardian restoration like. Another thing that people are saying, could you please put that in 0.1? Because raiders and extreme enjoyers, they're already satiated. They get some of that content right out the gate, at least in the form of extremes. A couple of them are ready right away. And then the raid hits. And then 7.1 comes out and there's an alliance raid, which I would say is fake raiding because it's not hard, but it's still raiding content.
And it's part of the gear cycle if you're leveling up in a rather linear fashion.
Is it?
Yeah, with the coin upgrade and all that to get the twine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All of those hopes and dreams, all of those desires, all of those, honestly, I'm going to say this is the most reasonable and simultaneously most frequently discussed hot take about Final Fantasy XIV. That their content rollout cycle is old, stale, and a little tone deaf. I think people are like right on the money with this, and I think it's super reasonable because it's like you're going to do this content anyway. Can you just reorder when it drops? Yes, people are also talking about like, hey, we're waiting even longer, and you haven't given us more stuff. What gives? Totally valid, but boy,
I have a lot to say, but I'll wait.
Howdy, in the world of MMOs. And being someone who has always been tapped in and listens to what everybody gripes about or wishes would be different or hopes for comes in the future, saying, hey, can you take the stuff you're already making and just release it at different times? It's got to be in the top 2 most reasonable requests I've ever seen out of an MMO playing public.
I do feel like when these eventually release, they do feel pretty good. And they are evergreen. So when they come out in the cosmic sense of time passing, doesn't matter so much.
I think that argument was good before Endwalker.
Go on.
I think Final Fantasy XIV is just as guilty as World of Warcraft is for trying new things. Oh, they failed. Let's never do them again because of Island Sanctuary and Endwalker. And maybe even more guilty than World of Warcraft, because World of Warcraft tends to keep what is successful. And as far as I can tell, Eureka and Boja were successful. And in Endwalker, they go, what if we just didn't do that and we swung for the fences and didn't hit a home run?
I said I was going to wait, but from what I gather, and again, we began playing the game at a similar time. From what I gather, Eureka wasn't necessarily hugely popular on release. I'm not so sure about Boja. And this is all sort of regurgitated information that I've been given by my own community who play Final Fantasy XIV. But from what I gather, these field operations weren't that exciting for people. And it's only through the rose-tinted goggles for a lot of these players where they've gone back and played it and they've found great enjoyment in it. I went and played through Eureka while I was progressing through Stormblood's post-patch MSQ stuff. I loved it. I absolutely loved Eureka. And then, of course, when it came around to Boja, I enjoyed Boja too. Not as much. Not as much, for reasons. But so, anyway, Sorry for interjecting. I'll check in at the end.
All you did was give less content to people who liked what you were doing before.
Points for experimenting, but you had something people liked, so why'd you change it?
I don't think you're allowed to experiment while removing something successful in MMOs. You can experiment, but it better be additive and not replacements.
I think that's a good point.
That's good.
I think that's
I agree with that.
Of Endwalker of all things. Funny enough. Now we're going back deeper, so.
Yeah, this is a deep conversation.
I think about MMOs a lot.
Yeah. Earlier patches need more varied content. I think this is a really big point, and I really feel it now because I want hype for 7.2, and knowing that some of the stuff I want is actually 7.2x is really weird feeling. I think this is
okay. Before they put it on, my 2 cents. I fully agree with basically everything they've said. And I think what Garrett touched upon there, where you can be experimental, but it can't be at the cost of removing something which is loved. It has to be additive. I've got to give, multiple gold stars to the dev team for wanting to experiment and pushing the envelope as to what the game can do. Island Sanctuary is very different from most other things you can do in the game. The Firmament, Ishgardian Restoration, very unique. And these are sorts of things that you don't really see in other MMOs. And it's great to see the dev team taking these risks and taking these gambles. The Criterion Dungeons, for example. Even if they're not necessarily home runs, if they eventually, stumble upon something which really gets the player base excited, like Eureka and Bozja, now that it's had time to sort of settle, more of that. Let's keep doing more of that. But we wouldn't have Eureka and Bozja if they weren't up for experimenting. Like, when Eureka comes into the game, it's so different from anything else that the game has to offer. So thank goodness that the dev team experimented in Stormblood and made Eureka, because, my God, I love it. I absolutely love it. The sense of camaraderie you have when in Eureka and a boss spawns, and you all run over and you've got this allotted pull timer. 27 minutes, 26 minutes, who knows? And seeing familiar faces, it reminded me so much of playing MMOs in the early noughties. We'd be stood around a capital city and you would see that guy on that mount in the middle of the town square and think, there he is. I've seen him there every day for the past week. You go to Ironforge in World of Warcraft and you see that raider stood on the bridge outside of the auction house. Oh, they've got the tier 2 shoulders. That's cool. They must have beat Chromagus at the weekend. And you could sort of have that touchstone of seeing these faces who you became familiar with doing Eureka and Bozja, which I really, really liked. So, for example, when I was in Pyros, when I moved to Hydatos, I think a couple of days later, someone in the general chat was someone that I'd met in Pyros when we were both new to that area. And I was like, oh, hey, you made it. And they were like, yeah, I cannot wait. I'm really looking forward to this. And then we became friends through that. And we played the game together. That's something I didn't have at all in 14 up until that point. So I'm very excited for the new field operation. And I miss that in Dawntrail. When I play Dawntrail right now, for me as a non-raider, yeah, like what Garrett and Kyle have said, there's nothing which has been released so far which has made me want to log in daily and play the game. And I know a common criticism, or response, should I say, to these comments is, oh, you've got a decade of game to play. Surely there's something in there you can enjoy. I've done quite a lot of it now that I want to do. I've done the extremes, I've done my Eureka, I've done my Bozja. There's a lot that is in the past which I could explore more, but there's nothing which appeals to me. And I think that's a fair thing to say. That isn't to say that I'm unappreciative of what's come before, and I don't appreciate that it's there for other people to enjoy, but as I look down the barrel of Dawntrail, yeah, I'm not that interested in Savage raiding. I'm not that interested in Ultimate raiding. I'm a parent at the minute, and I've got very limited free time outside of my job to play games. And the idea of having to form a static to do raids is, I can't do it. It's not going to be possible for me. what I did early doors with Dawn Trail was I gathered a lot. I got all of my orange gathering certificates, and I was trying to save up for the Ronique Mount Horn. I didn't get it, but I sold a lot of my vouchers on the market board and made some tens of millions of gil, which I really enjoyed, actually. But that's where I found my joy. And I know not everyone was doing that at the beginning of the expansion. People were enjoying the dungeons and the raids, and that's fine. I wish there was more for me to do early doors. And it doesn't just have to be, give me the relic weapon earlier. Because then there's the debate of, what form will the relic weapon grind take? Will it be like the Realm Reborn weapons, where you're having to fill out your books and get your light levels up? Or will it be like Endwalker, where you have to save up all of your tomestones and purchase them that way? I don't know on the spot what I would want to see. Most certainly not what Endwalker did, though. I would like to see maybe an updated version of the Realm Reborn relic system. You got to think that's a decade old now at this point. I'd like to see what they could do with that premise in a modern MMO setting, because I really think it had good bones. So give us that earlier. Give us the Field Zone earlier. Shades Triangle, wherever it's called. But again, this is all happy and, great if that were possible. I think if they could release it earlier, they would have done so. And I definitely think there is a pacing problem there, in that the game is front-loaded with content which appeals to a fraction of the player base. And it would be great to see more varied content in each patch, which hopefully appeals to a larger portion of that aforementioned Venn diagram. I know that I believe most patches, they do add in new housing items and housing changes. You've got the PvP series track, which is great, I think, for PvPers. It got me into PvP. I got the red dragon mount like 2-3 years ago because it was like the level 25 reward, and I thought, I want to get that. So more of that, but more often for a wider variety of players would be fantastic. I would place this at 4, I believe. I believe 4 is still open for me. Yeah, I think 4 and 7 are the only ones I've not filled in yet. No, that can't be right. 4? I don't know. 4 is my answer.
This looks like a healthy... I mean, this is... Given the time we're in right now, and our current hype and self-control.
Mm-hmm.
God, that might be number 1, because our audience is so reasonable.
Reasonable.
All right, what's last?
I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
All right, up last.
What is it?
Balanced Pictomancer.
That is...
I will say now, I've got nothing to say about this. I don't know how powerful Pictomancer is, so this is lost on me. I don't really think I'm going to have anything to say.
Fascinating. What a one to have last. Such small potatoes, but also matters a lot. But also
came up a lot.
Doesn't matter at all in some regards. It's PvE content. If you clear, hot damn, everyone wins. You're probably not bringing 2 of them anyway. But it's a feels bad, and can't you do something about this? It's just numbers. Can you change numbers? The balance in Blizzard games would reach fever pitches. You have to fix this now.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in Final Fantasy XIV.
I would call Final Fantasy XIV players patient in regards to this, but I think they're just a little dead inside and numb to how slow class balance updates actually roll out.
They're numb, and it's scheduled, and they know that applying pressure will do nothing. To put that at 7. That's no, really? You think that?
No, I still think
I am, now that they're talking about it, I am reminded of, I believe, was it for the latest Alliance raid, the Cloud of Darkness one, or the Ultimates? I can't remember. Where party finders were explicitly saying Pictomancers only. I could be wrong. I don't know how imbalanced it is, but if it is as imbalanced as they're making it out to be, and from what I vaguely remember, there's a concern there. And I think this links back to number 2 on their list. Earlier patches need more varied content. Not being afraid to release more patches more infrequently as a means to balance things or even release additional, dregs of content, I think would be appreciated by the player base. And it means that issues like this don't necessarily persist for months on end, right? Because at the beginning of the expansion, I think they shot way too early on nerfing Viper. And by nerfing, I mean changing the rotation. There were fundamental things about Viper which I think for a lot of players, not going to say the majority because I don't really have my finger on the pulse that well, a lot of people I knew who played Viper were disappointed, myself included, by some of the changes they made. And it felt very reactionary to the outcry from a vocal minority. So how can they act quickly in that regard? But when it comes to a job which is clearly overpowered, what is preventing them from pulling the trigger on making changes? Is what I'd like to know. Maybe they've answered that in a dev Q&A or at a fan fest. So again, feel free to correct me. I'm very curious.
You think we're
not literally alone because someone else put it on the board and a couple other people mentioned it. I don't know, man.
No, this one we've heard for years. This is a new issue. Formulaic Dungeons has to be higher.
Oh, you've agreed with me so much. I'm giving you this.
Okay. All right.
I want you to know that if this is at number 5,
you're gonna be.
I want everyone to know I'm right.
He got points. Okay.
Right. I'm looking at you.
What do you think? You think it's number 1?
I think that might be number 1.
I think it's a fever pitch right now. I think that is the most important thing to us right now.
There's no way to talk about this without being entitled.
Well, now that they've finished the list, I think I put MSQ's narrative, pacing, and quality at 3. Now that I've seen everything else, I think I probably would knock that down to 4 like they have. I wasn't sure what else was going to be on the list. They've got some good stuff in here. Really good stuff in here. I think ultimately our top 3 are going to be the same. I'll be very surprised if their community's response to the questionnaire will be different. Very, very curious to see what's on the right-hand side of this board now.
No player who just yells, "Fix it," which is exactly what I do when I hear about spaghetti code. I am guilty of that. This is no shade. I'm talking about myself. So I think this is number 1.
Yeah, and take spaghetti code down to here and put that in 2. I think this is a big one right now.
I don't think it's bigger than Glamour System.
The heat has died off a lot for the MSQ hate, but
I don't think MSQ is 2. I really don't.
We're hoping 7-2 brings the heat.
I think they had it right before.
And it normally does.
Is this what are we locking it in?
I'm ready to lock in. Are you ready to lock in?
Okay, hold on. Let me have a look. I'm going to give my opinion really quickly. I would keep spaghetti code at either 1 or 2 with the Glamour System in whichever one I don't put spaghetti code in. I think they're interchangeable. And I do think that they are so intrinsically linked that it's impossible to have one without the other. Like, they both need to be fixed in order for, either one to get fixed. You know what I'm trying to say. So I'd put those at 1 and 2. Spaghetti code, Glamour System. 3rd would be earlier patches need more varied content. 4th would be MSQ's narrative and pacing. I think 5th would be formulaic dungeons. 6th would be optional content. 7th would be Pictomancer, is what I would say.
All right, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Good. All right. What is the actual number 7?
Okay, number 7.
So I think balance Picto.
Oh!
Hey!
Doesn't matter. No.
Balance Pictomancer, but whenever you feel like getting to it.
We convinced
Next, I think, is
ourselves.
optional content.
I'm happy, though. I'm very happy.
We have a tie. 5 and 6 got exactly the same amount of votes.
Oh, wow. With that
Really?
many votes?
Yep.
Yes!
Optional content. It's
yeah.
barely okay.
And is it going to be formulaic
Really
dungeons?
close. I'm happy. Y'all are RPG players. Hell yeah.
But there's so many people in our Discord that adore the MSQ. Makes sense. We made how many videos about the MSQ, which is how a lot of people found us in the first place. Yeah. Just getting warm and fuzzy about our community. I love you guys.
Agreeable folk. Number 5. No
What? What?
way.
Glamour System's number
No
5.
way.
That has surprised me.
What? Wow, y'all hate spaghetti code. I mean, fair.
Yeah?
I'm not a big spaghetti code fan either.
But that is, like,
Well, for me, I thought Glamour System was 1 or 2. So
for those, that is their end game.
Yeah.
And so it's talked about with great import.
Yeah.
Formulaic dungeons, that's going higher than I thought.
yeah, I would
Okay,
not
well,
have.
we still could be okay. Let's see.
I would not have expected that. It can't. It's got to
Number
be
4.
4. It's
Come
got
on,
to be
spaghetti
4.
code.
Oh, okay.
The formulaic dungeons. Those are more
You are
important.
dungeon enjoyers.
Yeah.
You're just like me.
Oh,
Oh,
that's great.
Aw.
I'm not mad about it. I'm just mad about being wrong. Damn.
Undervalued.
Whew, how many of you are tanks? I feel like this is just tanks are annoyed by this. All right.
All right.
To a degree.
Yeah, go for
All
it.
right,
Go.
number 3. We know it's not going to be Glamour
Come on.
System.
Come on, spaghetti code.
What do you think? Is spaghetti code?
Spaghetti
Come on,
code.
spaghetti code.
Come on,
Let's
Spaghetti. We can
wrong
still be
by
right for number 2.
one. Wow. We are
MSQ's
so wrong.
narrative? Yep.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay.
All right. Sane take, though.
All right, we're pissed. We're pissed about spaghetti code.
the
and we're
spaghetti
pissed
code.
About. I think we're right about this.
I think we got to be right.
I think it's gonna be spaghetti code earlier, but MSQ's narrative pacing. and
Now
quality.
that
All right, so
I've
still
now that I've seen Glamour System at 5, I agree. I think Spaghetti Code at 2, earlier patches at 1.
a big. No, and honestly, more people wrote about the pacing than like saying I didn't think it was as good. And I think they're right. I think it's like the formulaic nature of the MSQ just taking a long time to just get on with it appears to be rearing its head. People have seen it.
I personally had not acknowledged the final zone thing they do.
Of all of the pattern recognition, the pattern of there being always a surprise, I don't see that as a bad thing. Oh no, that's like being pissed you get presents every Christmas.
It's so formulaic.
Who would be
So much of the media we consume nowadays is formulaic. So I don't take issue with stuff like what they're talking about now. Like, oh, there's going to be a really cool final zone. You'd expect there to be a cool final zone. It would be odd if the final zone was a whimper rather than a courageous roar into the void. So that I'm not bothered by at all. But I do think there are pacing problems, but I'm not going to talk about that now because this video would double in length.
you mad about that?
Ugh. Have to wait till my birthday for the next patch. This sucks.
Yeah, that's not the problem. The problem is, like, those first few zones are gonna, like, you can choose to go in whatever order you want, and so the story's probably not gonna be that consequential. You're gonna just read a lot of text boxes, and so pretty much all the weight rests on the story being balls amazing. And if it isn't, well, the tried and true and, dare I say, maybe not the most engaging way that the story is portrayed doesn't cover up any of the warts of the quality of the narrative.
Pacing and quality.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm calling
Spaghetti
it now.
code.
Spaghetti code.
Spaghetti code.
Show me spaghetti code.
Take it away,
Yes.
spaghetti.
I may not have gotten this right,
spaghetti.
but at least I'm calling it correct now. There's literally a 50-50 chance.
We
Praise
moved
me.
it wrongfully. It is accused.
Didn't I say I thought it was 2?
Yeah, I'm the one who moved that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I ruined that.
Yeah. So, well, spoiler.
Spoiler.
We were right about number 1.
At least we were right about number 1.
It's just so goddamn reasonable.
It's right.
It's such a reasonable request.
It really is. Like it's not like you're asking to I don't know, move mountains or anything, is it? It is such a reasonable request, and it's a real testament to our love of the game. We want to play more of this game. We want more content. We want to exist in the world of Eorzea more often than not, please. Developers, if you could do that for us, that'd be greatly appreciated. Like, that's... I think we all want that, right?
Quest.
So reasonable.
So what do you think? Is this in the order it should be? Do you disagree with this order? Should something else have made the wall of grievances?
Right, well, they're wrapping up their video, so I'll wrap up mine too. I think this is the most level-headed, balanced way you can have this sort of discussion which doesn't come across as obnoxious, which I'm not pointing fingers at anyone in particular. It's just content where it's hypercritical is... It feeds into the algorithm, and people are rewarded for making content which has shock appeal. And often what that leads to is not a lack of journalistic integrity, but very nuanced bias opinions which are meant to enrage and fan the flames of discontent and to get people riled up and to get people angry. And the way I see it, we play games as an escape from the shitstorm that is the real world. I don't want to go play my favorite video game, go online to discuss it, and see yet another shitstorm. And that can be often over-exaggerated and, I don't know, I'm struggling to find the word, but compounded, I think, might be the one I'm looking for, by content creators playing on that and riffing on it. Whereas having this sort of round table, more level-headed questionnaire poll where we're using data points from actual players of the game as opposed to, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, very biased, somewhat out of touch players who play it exponentially more than anyone else, is a good way to do it. So I've got to give massive credit to Garrett and Kyle for this. I think they've done an exemplary job. So looking forward to hopefully them doing more of this in the future. And I'm very glad I watched this because I can relate to a lot of their thoughts. I can really appreciate the time and effort which their community have put into answering the questionnaire and being able to create this piece of content for us all. At the end of the day, we all love Final Fantasy XIV. We want to play it more. We want to enjoy it more. And I think that's a good thing. So yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to, subscribe over to these guys, Grinding Gear. Supportourbromance.com. I'll plug them again. I don't care. They're great. And hey, I guess if you like watching me, you can support me as well. But yeah, this has been good. And hopefully if they do one in the future, we can react to that one too.